Hi. So today we're going to do, for our mindfulness session, today we're going to do a quick little meditation on refocusing and giving our attention to the identity that we want to embrace, that we want to become, right? Part of what happens is there's parts in us, right? We might really know who and what we want to become, how we want to behave, what habits we want to have. But then there sometimes is a part of us, a little voice, or maybe it's a big voice, maybe it's ours, maybe it's somebody else's, that explains to us and convinces us that there's parts of that identity that you can't have, that you'll never become, right? And these are ultimately lies that are told, our subconscious mind regurgitating to us because we consciously told it at a certain time to remember this, right? Remember these feelings of being inadequate. Remember that this person said we weren't worth it. Remember that this person made us feel that we weren't worth it, right? And so at this point, we can take and rewire some of these beliefs, some of these lies that we continually believe, and they're holding us back from becoming who we want to be, from embracing that identity, right? So we want to look at what that is, right? So when I say, what is the lie that just floats around in your head, right? So for me, if I, on a dime, ask myself this, right? What is that lie, right? It is, you're too much. It's too much. You're too loud, right? You're too in people's faces. And I'm like sitting here and this camera is so big right now in my face, right? You're too much, right? So that is a lie. Perhaps for people in my past, perhaps for people in my present, perhaps for people in my future. They may feel, right, that I'm too much, but that's them. I'm not too much. I'm not too little. I'm just the right amount of Kathy for Kathy, right? To be Kathy, to step into my identity, right? And there were times that I believed that lie so much that my conscious mind told my subconscious to remember that I said, well, I guess that's just how I have to be, right? If I'm going to believe this lie, then it becomes part of my identity. And then you start to behave, or I started to behave in a manner that was too much, right? Almost like that self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So I believed what youth, young was told or felt, right? And then brought it in part and made it part of my identity. So we're going to take and think of what that opposite can be, that reframe, right? So when we think of our identity, we want it to be comprised of behaviors, which is really habits, which really then just support what you want, right? So for me, I want to be comfortable in who I am and not question whether I'm too little or too much. And I want to know that different situations call for different amounts, quote unquote, I don't know if you see them, of me, right? So I'm going to create a new belief of that I know exactly how to behave as myself in situations. That is my belief, right? So now, instead of walking around looking for proof that I'm too much, I'm overwhelming, I'm too loud, right? Because that's my focus, right? And it was my identity because I created that. Instead of looking for proof on that, it's going to take effort because these grooves are deep, right? But I'm going to start to look for proof of my new belief. I'm going to look for proof, and this might be at the beginning, honestly, I've done this already. But so at the beginning for me, it was literally every interaction I had, I would do some self-awareness, some self-evaluation, right? Was I true to myself in that situation? Was I authentic, right? Looking for proof that I behaved exactly how I want to be, my identity, right? And not feeding into old lies. So now I'm at this point where I can tell when I'm feeling the old creepiness come in, and I can do my work a little bit more diligently, a little more frequently. When you have, so I went away this summer with my family. Our families are wonderful opportunities because they're the ones that have known us for the longest and have witnessed our identity. They're sometimes the ones that have installed buttons that are pushed, right? Buttons need to be installed to be pushed. And so some of those buttons are pushed there. But also there's this, the concept of that, however that button was installed, if I keep that button shiny and ready to be pushed, right, it's going to be pushed. And so it's feeding into that identity, and the people around us feed into it because we are presenting like that, right? So this is all about becoming who you want to be in a mindful way, where we need self-awareness, self-evaluation, and self-motivation, right? And motivation, the biggest, I love this quote about motivation, is that you don't get motivated to start, you start and get motivated, right? So we're going to start looking for proof of our new identity. And that starting and finding proof is going to continually keeping us motivated on this track of becoming who we want to be. So my questions for you is to really think about that one belief that pops up. Like we know we could probably make a laundry list of beliefs that we don't like, or identities of ourselves, right? Like, oh, here she goes, she's crying again, or oh, here she goes, she's sulking, here she goes, she's thinking everything's a joke, right? We have this running list of how we present that other people help us feed into, right? But for right now, when I tell you to think about one, whatever pops in your head, right? That first one, write it down, okay? We don't need to write the proof for it. It's so ingrained. We don't want to ingrain it even more. We don't want to deepen those grooves, right? But we want to think of what the flip is, right? Where do we want to focus? How do we want that to change and create a belief, and start today by looking for evidence to support your new belief? I love that for us. We're going to do that. And to help us today, I thought I would pull a card from Numerology Oracle deck. And why I love this deck is because not only is it a message for me to think about, whatever card I end up pulling, as I'm shuffling them right now, but it stays with me through the day, because then I start to see this number or variations of this number. And then I remember the message, right? I remember what that number's meaning is, how we can look for guidance in the everyday. I don't know if you read that book, Signs. The author is escaping me. But that's more about signs from beyond, which this could be too, who knows. But just looking for those signs to support us on our journey. All right, so 56, relationship change. Oh, I love it. 56, relationship change. So that doesn't mean really, it could be a complete change, a shift. It could be a career relationship. It could be work. It could be, which I guess that would be the same. It could be personal. It could be self-relationship, right? Like, and also change does not mean end. So we'll look at what this says. This card indicates a time when a relationship in your life is going through a period of change. The adjustment is inevitable and necessary for the natural progression of this relationship. And the wisdom and experience gained will be of great benefit for all involved. ew, I'm gonna cry, listen to this. Whether a child is leaving home, as you all know, or maybe you don't, one of my babies left for college. When a child is leaving home, a partner, friendship has ended, or a loved one, friend, work colleague, neighbor is going through a change, know that you and the other person are divinely guided and protected and have the strength to carry on. The affirmation is, my relationships grow and evolve for the greater good of all. Change is necessary, right? And even thinking about when I was talking about how our families tend to bring up stuff for us, right? Allowing that change, allowing the people in our lives to change too, right? A lot of times we get upset because we think, oh, when I'm around family, they treat me this way. Probably because you treat them the way you always have as well. We have to let the people in our lives grow and change so that we can create new relationships for change. So number 56, relationship change, and your homework, your little guidance of what is the one belief today you want to take a closer look at and start to create a new identity around.